So hey there, Larkyn. I hope this microphone is working. You're actually the first test of this microphone. So you asked me about moving your horse sideways. And sideways is really made up of two parts. It's made up of moving the hind end and moving the front end. So the first thing I want you to kind of check on with Mr. Darcy is, do you have the ability to move the hind end? And if you do, what cue are you using? So in this case here, I'll get her hindquarter to move by lifting the rope. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is actually to point at just below the hip in kind of the move over spot. And you can see, there she goes. She's not quite moving over. In that case, she wanted to move forward. You might not have been able to see it, but I was using my hand here just to kind of hold her still if she moved forward. But I'm going to try again without it. Can she move her hip over? Gently tapping, 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 tapping. There, she moved it over, and she also wanted to move her front end. So I'm simply just going to back her up, give her a rub. I might even rub her with the stick and start over. So tap here on this spot, asking the hip to move over. The hip to move over. And when I say move over, I mean that inside hind leg to step under. You know what a hindquarter is. So once I have the hip kind of moving, I want to make sure the front end can move. When I'm moving the front end, I don't want the back end to move. So I'm going to start here a little bit, positioning myself between kind of the eyeball, kind of off the eyeball might be a better way to say it. And I'm just going to use my stick. I've got two places I can ask my horse to move over from. There's a go away button, if you will. Woo! Right here. Oh, she says, oh, does that mean go away fast? No. So I'm going to rub her with it. A little too sensitive there. The other go away button is right here, halfway down the neck. There. And she's pretty sensitive, as you know and as you can see. So with this go away button there, I don't really have to do too much except hit near it. One way to really start this moving sideways, one of the biggest problems they have is they want to go forward. So an easy way to start the sideways is if you have something in front of them, you can use it as a barrier to keep them going forward. Otherwise, you're going to have to be telling them three things. Move your front end, move your hind end, and don't go forward if they go forward. So breaking that down, I'm just going to ask her if she can move her front end over. Good girl. And then her hind end over. There she steps forward, so then I'll have to say back up. Repeat again, move your front end over. Good girl, move your hind end over. Good girl, move your front end over. Here she's overreacting, so I'm just going to stay steady until she can move that front end over. Good girl, and then move her back end over. Good girl. So you see it starts in parts. She's a little overreactive, but that's just kind of how it goes. Good girl. So we'll just start that over. Hind end around with lifting my rope. Make sure you're using one cue to get your hindquarter. So here I'm asking the front. Good girl. Give a little wiggle and say, I don't want you to walk forward. Here I'm going to ask the back. Good girl. The front. Don't go fast. Good girl. Sometimes it just kind of becomes a blend. There. So in this case, she was totally assuming and moving that front end and that back end kind of sideways. She's starting to figure it out. But she's way overreactive in this case. I don't think you're going to have that problem with Darcy. He might be a little underreactive or not sure what you're talking about. So to help her, I'm just going to back up a step. Make sure I can rub her with the stick, that she doesn't go anywhere rubbing with the stick. Good girl. And then I'm going to walk her just to kind of reset her brain and moving her feet. Good girl. All right, we're going to try it again. Good girl. We're going to use the same technique I did before. There goes her front end. And this horse is so sensitive that I could actually do all this with the rope, but I'm trying to show you how to do it with the stick. So I'm going to ask the front end over. Good girl. Then the hind end. Then the front end. Then the hind end. Then the front end. She's stuck on the front end. She's worried about that stick. Good girl. Now I'll reach up and rub her with the stick. Good girl. Yeah. Good girl. Notice I'm staying on the same side to do this repeatedly a couple of times so she can get the idea in her mind. We don't want to switch sides because that gets things confusing. She needs to know when she did something right. So here I'm going to ask the front end to come across to get her perpendicular to the fence. That was excellent. It's probably the nicest one she's done yet on moving her front end. So I'm going to take a minute here and just come in and rub on her and just reward her for a job well done. You know, the most important part of this is rewarding along the way, not being focused just on your sideways only, but the ability that this horse can start to move off of pressure and understand what I want. So here we go again. I ask the front end. I'm going to back her up because she walked forward. The front end, good girl. Now the back end, good girl. Now the front end, good girl. Now the back end, good girl. Now the front end, good girl. Front end, good girl. Now the back end. There. Good girl. We'll walk away to move her feet. Look at the pause that I put in between each one. Those are really helpful, giving her an idea of how to do that. I'm going to show you one more way that I like to teach the sideways, and that's when you stand in front of them a little bit better, but the case goes the same. You need to be able to make sure that your horse understands the cue that you're using and exactly what it stands for or what it means. In this case, I want this stick. If I stand here kind of in front of her, I'm keeping a hold on this line but short. So if she goes, I can catch her, but I'm not holding her head. So while my hand is here, I'm asking, can she move this hip over? Just need that hip to step over. A little bit better. I'm looking for that hind foot to step under. If need be, I'm raising my hand to give her a hint. So my suggest is bringing my stick over, my ask is touching, and my tell involves me lifting that lead rope. I want to make sure that hind quarter cue is good. I'm pretty certain that this front quarter cue is better. There, that's excellent. So once I have them working together, you can see she's already assumed what we're going to put together. I just moved the side out that is poking out at me. So I like to do this in knowing which way I'm going. In this case, I've got the fence behind me, and I want my horse to move perpendicular. So I'm just going to move the part of the body that needs to go in order to stay perpendicular, and at the same time, I'm going to move sideways. So here I'm asking the shoulder, good, asking the hip, good. Don't come on top of me, a gentle backup, and pause. Good girl. Getting some licking and chewing, which is great. So I'm going to let her hang out for a minute on that. Good girl. Good girl. Give her some bonding. Tell her what an awesome horse she is. All right, and here we go again. Front end, back end. Whoops. Good. Front end, back end. Coming forward, so I have to bump her back at the same time. Front end. Good girl. Back end. Ask her back. Remember, when you're not using your stick, put it to the ground into neutral. Front end, good girl. Back end, good girl. Front end, and back end. So I just keep asking here. She kicked out a little bit at that. And eventually what I'm hoping to do is that this straight stick moving at her side while I walk sideways helps her to understand to move sideways. Good girl. Let her pause on that. That should give you some good ideas on how this will work. I'll put it together for you one more time. The walking in between is a bigger reward for me than food. Food is okay. You're welcome to do that with good timing as long as your horse is not mauling you, which in your video it didn't look like he was mauling you. It looked like things were going good. So here we go again. We're thinking about tracking sideways. Good girl. Back up. We're going sideways. Sideways. we'll try it one more time. I like how relaxed she's getting when we walk out. That tells me she's able to get herself down to a nice neutral, feeling relaxed and comfortable. Good girl. All right, you ready to go? Whoop, whoop, whoop. Why are you walking off so fast? You're passing me. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. All right, are you ready to start sideways? Yay! Back up. Hip, hip. Okay, don't go forward. I need you to back up. Good, one. Good, back up. One, good, and hip. Good, and back up. Back up. Good. Let's go sideways. Hip, hip. Hip. There was a good hip. Good girly. Good girly. Let's try one more. Can we do it? A little bit more sideways. A little bit more sideways. 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 I'm not super happy with that, but she's getting the general idea. So I'm going to try one more time just going along the fence to see if that gets it any better. Good. Hip, front. When you get this going good, it's almost like your stick kind of becomes this windshield wiper. Nice and slow. She's resistant on the front end. You want to make sure you're pushing that lead rope forward. Good girl, and then I'll just finish with a little hind quarter. Good girl. Give her a little reward. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Send me a video of what you've got. I've obviously got work to do here to help this one bring it along a little bit better. But I hope that gives you a general idea. Talk to you soon.